it's time to learn how to properly set up our project settings so that we don't have to scale our sprites every time we create a new node or object inside of our game, scene inside of our game. Come up to Project and Project Settings. Inside of Project Settings, we have quite a bit of different settings we can alter. Up here at the top, you can see we have General, Input Map, Localization, Auto Load, Plugins, GD Native. So General is just general project settings. Input Map, this is where you can create the input map for your different actions in your game. So you can say an action, for example, would be UI right, and we would have the right key enabled on a keyboard, or device 0 D-pad right, so on a controller of some sort. These two things would activate this action. And you can set these up to whatever you like. And we'll go into that a bit more in future lectures. You also have a localizations tab where you can choose and add different localizations or translations to your game to make sure that if some multiple different languages, to support multiple different languages. And it's quite easy and a nice system. You also have auto load. This is where you can set up singletons in your game if you need to have some singletons. We'll want to avoid these as much as we can, but there are scenarios where they may be useful and where we may use them. We've got plugins if you're installing plugins in Godot, and then you have GD Native, which is where you're able to add C++ functionality. If there's any sort of bottlenecks in your code that you need to be faster, you can use GD Native to speed up those areas. But in the general, this is where we're going to focus. We've got a lot of information here. You can see here in the run, this is where we can set the main scene. We've been using the helper to set that, but this is where you would set it if you wanted to change it. If we want something else to run instead of world, you would change it here. There's a lot of other settings, debug settings, GD script settings. You can turn off warning messages in here. You could turn off auto completion. We've got autocomplete on setters and getters. We've got stuff for Android here if you're setting up the Android for Android. Networking information, memory information, logging, rendering, display, physics. There's just a lot of properties here, and I'd recommend going through each one and kind of looking at it and see if you can kind of guess what it is. It doesn't matter if you know what it does yet, because probably when you need something and you need to change it, you will come into here and be able to find it. We're going to focus on display here, so we'll come into window. And the first thing we're going to change is the size of our game. So this is up here at the top in display. We're going to change our size to 320 by 180. You can see it already resized our game. And whoops, I clicked outside the window there, but that's okay. It already resized the game, and because this background right here is anchored to the full view, when we set up its anchor up here, it just automatically resized as well with the new window size. And if we run our game, you can see it's tiny now, but we have resized it. So we want to come back up into project settings, come back into window here, and we want to set our test width and test height. I'm not sure why they call it test width and test height, but this is basically the window size. So we've set our game view size. Now we want to set the window size. So we're going to set these 1280 by 720. Now if we run the game, our window size is large again, and the black background scaled up for the new window size like it properly should, but our piggy didn't scale. It's still tiny. So this doesn't look much better. Well, we need our game window to scale, and in fact if you turn off the background, well, that wouldn't help much either. Let's drag in an apple so you can see how this works. If the apple's right in the corner of the room, and then we run the game, it's up here. It's not down here, right? So it's scaling the background, but our game window is still only right here. So now, if we come into project settings again, we want to tell it what kind of stretch mode to use. This is how we tell it how to scale up the game window. And we're going to set this to 2D. And if we press close, now our game should scale properly and our little piggy character will be up here. So that's pretty much it. It's not too tricky to set up. There's only 3 main parts of setting up the window to get it to work properly for 2D. You want to set your width and height. You'll want to set your test width and test height. And then you'll want to set your stretch mode to 2D, just like that. And you're good to go. I'll see you all in the next lecture.